Hello, welcome to the Todoroki guide. This guide will cover absolutely everything you need to know about playing as Todoroki in Heroes Battlegrounds. This guide is intended for players of all skill levels, so whether you're just starting the game or if you're a very experienced player, hopefully you'll learn something brand new about Todoroki. Please keep in mind that Heroes Battlegrounds is a constantly changing game, so smaller details such as numbers for cooldowns or damage might get altered in the future, and something shown in this video might even get patched out. There will be a pinned comment to acknowledge any changes that might affect anything in this video. To introduce Todoroki, or Split Ice as he's known in game as a character, he's a primarily melee-based character who specialises in doing true combos. Todoroki is a more unique character in Heroes Battlegrounds because he can perform a lot and even all of his skills. Hey everyone, editing Silo here. This got patched out. I've had to redo quite a big part of this video because, well, the game updated and removed a couple of Todoroki's things, rebalanced him, changed a couple of moves. It's annoying, so as a result of this, I've actually had to cut out the ultimate part of the video, as the things that I talked about have already been changed and a couple of texts I was going to show have been removed, so terribly sorry for that, but I hope you enjoy it regardless. So without wasting someone's evasive, the easiest comparison to make is to Stain, where he can deal an insane amount of damage and doesn't care if you have an evasive or not. His kit is extremely well rounded and has an answer for basically any situation, and his moveset is extremely diverse, allowing for a lot of combo potential and techs. So I really hope to show that Todoroki can be one of the coolest and most fun characters to play in all of Heroes Battlegrounds. So enough introduction, let's begin with Todoroki's base moveset. The first move that you have in Todoroki's base moveset is Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero is a move that changes its properties depending on what type of action you take before you use it. The move can be activated on its own or can be changed by doing a certain M1 action such as an Uppercut, Hit Away, or a Downslam. The different variants don't change the move too drastically in terms of damage or cooldown, but knowing when to use which one at what time is the best way to learn Todoroki. And yes, the game does actually want you to use more than one variant of this move, as it will actively punish you by adding a longer cooldown if you use the same variant twice in a row. The neutral variant of Sub-Zero is a slow grab move that is true after 3 M1s. And by slow, I do mean one of the slowest in the game, as it's on par with other grabs such as Vigilante Deku's Delaware grab. But despite its incredibly long wind-up, it does have very low knockback, which is a very good trade-off. One way to take advantage of this low knockback is to combine it with a front dash. The main use for this is combining it with environmental attacks such as pillars, trees, and trash cans. But be aware that for objects such as the pillar and trash can, it may not always give you a full M1 reset and it may ground the opponent. For situations like this, you'll need to use Ice Javelin to pick them back up and extend your combo. Additionally, the move has extremely low amounts of end lag, so you can act out of it pretty quickly and side dash and use Frost Burst to send the opponent flying. You can also use Frost Burst as a punishing tool if you believe that your opponent is going to evasive after you use Sub-Zero. You will need to be quite quick with this though, as if you are too slow with the Frost Burst, it will be blockable and you are likely to be punished after it. So despite being on the slower side and being one of Todoroki's slowest moves in his entire kit, the neutral variant of Sub-Zero is a really solid move that has a decent amount of versatility for how simple of a move it is. But with the neutral variant covered, we can now move on to some of the other variants. After your 4th M1, you'll do the Knockaway variant of Sub-Zero, and this tends to be one that is a bit inconsistent among the community. Many people believe that this variant is actually quite bad due to the way its damage works. But the way this move actually deals damage is pretty simple. After your 4th M1, you send out 2 waves of spikes, and each of the spikes deal 8%. The spikes will always do 8% each no matter how little of the spike hits the opponent. Hell, you can even hit the opponent with the back part of the spike, it'll always do 8%. This means that this move can deal slightly more damage than any of the other variants of Sub-Zero, with the trade-off of being that it's basically useless regarding combos. So in order to consistently get the maximum damage of this move, you need the spikes to hit the opponent before they go too far out of range by the M1 knockback. The two best ways to achieve this is to either side dash next to the opponent and then use the variant, and the other way is to take advantage of a Heroes Battlegrounds mechanic where you stack the move with an M1. See, unlike most Battlegrounds games, Heroes Battlegrounds will not cancel your M1 even after you use a skill. This is mostly a small quality of life feature that doesn't make it so you cancel downslams or anything, and makes the gameplay overall much more consistent. However, Todoroki can use this to his advantage. Using the Sub-Zero variant at the same time as your 4th M1 will allow you to stack the moves on top of each other. This means that by the time you land your 4th M1, the Sub-Zero variant is also being activated, meaning the opponent can't get out of the range from the M1 knockback and will always result in the maximum amount of damage being dealt. Once you land this move, there's not much you can do with it because it is mainly a combo ender due to its very high knockback and its good range. There is a small little trick you can do with this move to an opponent who's playing particularly passively, but it is pretty risky to do. After the 4th M1 of your choosing, you can hold the variant of Sub-Zero for about 3 seconds or so. This allows you to quickly side dash after your 4th M1 and use the variant immediately after to use it as a sniping tool. Just be very careful with how you do this though, as while the move is unblockable, if you miss it, the opponent can very easily punish you. So while the Knockaway variant isn't the greatest in terms of its versatility, as the only real way you can combine it into any moves is to cancel an aerial Downslam, it's still a really stylish move and one that shouldn't be written off. And despite only dealing 2 extra damage, that tiny damage can really help sometimes when finishing off a weak opponent. The next variant is the Downslam variant, and oh my god, people hate this variant and really do consider it to be the worst in the entire moveset. But what's wrong with the move? Well, for one, that wind-up. Being the longest wind-up out of any of the variants for Sub-Zero, and it's not even close, taking over a full second to even come out. And secondly, there's just no real incentive to actually use this variant over the others. Despite having the longest wind-up and being the hardest to land consistently, it deals no extra damage and has insane knockback, being 2 things that every other variant does better. But despite these setbacks, the Downslam variant still does have a handful of useful cases. One of its best features is that it can be incredibly hard to punish and steal a combo with an aggressive evasive. Despite having no invincibility frames, the extreme height you gain from the move allows you to completely avoid most moves in M1s, meaning that this move can be an incredible punish tool if you can call out an aggressive play. This sort of trick is more suited for fighting high level players, but you still need to be careful. Being too slow with activating the variant after the Downslam can still get you punished, and the Downslam variant is incredibly susceptible to counters due to its long windup. It is a risky trick tool that can have a decent payoff if you can call out a bad play. But outside of its niche use cases, using the move in combos is limited, but it's not impossible. One system you can take advantage of is that the variant can be activated not only after a normal Downslam, but also cancelling an aerial Downslam. This allows you to catch up to opponents after using Frostburst and stack the Downslam with the variant, leading to a super stylish combo. No, it's not practical at all, but it is very cool. And don't worry about an aerial Downslam after trying to activate a different Sub-Zero variant, as the Downslam variant will not override your main M1 of choice. So while it's not the greatest variant out of all the Sub-Zeros, it's still okay, and you can do some pretty cool combos with it, just try not to use it too often because people will catch on and you are likely to be punished. And the final variant of Sub-Zero is the best one by far, the Uppercut variant. Formerly one of the fastest grabs in the game and one of the fastest moves overall, but now it's been nerfed and is much more toned down. But I'm gonna be honest with you, this change did nothing. Sure, it's much slower now, but you can still do a lot of the same jank that you could do before, just it's a bit slower. The only thing of note that isn't possible anymore because of this change is something that was actually featured on HBTV. Pre-nerf, this version of Sub-Zero was so fast that you could grab someone immediately after Frostburst. But like, there's still ways you can pull this sort of thing off. I'll show those in a little bit, but let's take a step back. Why is the Uppercut variant so good? For one, its knockback is similar to the neutral variant. Instead of sending opponents more forward, it sends them more upwards. This allows you to do similar things to the neutral variant, such as catching opponents on the environment or using Frostburst immediately after. And in neutral with just M1s, it's actually better than the neutral variant, as you can stack it with the Uppercut to make it inescapable while dealing extra damage. Yep, that mechanic where you can stack moves in M1s comes back yet again, as you can stack the Uppercut with the Uppercut variant and grab someone immediately, meaning they have no way to evasive out of it. And the Uppercut variant also has a mini Frostburst, meaning it's actually pretty good fighting teamers or multiple people at once, as you can hit multiple people with this move. On top of having full iframes while using it, I think you can understand now why I think this move is the best out of all the Sub-Zero variants. So I would recommend that you use this variant much more than any of the other variants. But remember what I said at the beginning of the video, you don't want to use the same variant twice in a row as it will give you a longer cooldown, so alternate between the Uppercut and the neutral variant due to them being so similar. But the Uppercut variant can do a few things that the neutral variant can't. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, its synchronization with Frost Burst is amazing. After Frost Burst, you can side dash and catch them with the Uppercut variant, however this is made more inconsistent because of the nerf. So instead, what I prefer to do is an aerial Downslam. You don't have to worry about aiming the side dash, nor do you have to take your eyes off of the opponent, and the aerial Downslam gives you significantly more speed compared to a regular side dash. This also means you can land the aerial Downslam for some extra damage. But even if you're not confident in landing the Downslam, you can simply cancel it and take advantage of the huge hitbox that this move has. But this tech is to just show off. If you want the consistent damage without any of the fancy tech stuff, then using Frost Burst after the Uppercut variant works just fine as well. Over 10 minutes later, we are finally done with all of the Sub-Zero variants, and now we can move on to the move that literally every player hates more than anything in this game, Ice Javelin. Ice Javelin is a basic M1 reset, but what makes it so hated is that it gives a full M1 reset while also being inescapable. Most other unescapable M1 resets, such as Deku's Texas Smash or Stain's Thousand Slashes, only give 2 M1s back, whereas Ice Javelin provides the full M1 reset. The downside to this is that your M1s get a heavy damage penalty, reducing them from dealing 4 to 5 damage down to 1 and 2 damage. The other downside to this is the fact that literally everybody assumes Todoroki is a newbie class because people do the ever so infamous combo of 3 M1s, Ice Javelin, 3 more M1s, and then neutral Sub-Zero. But there are other ways to use Ice Javelin without making people totally hate you. For one, it's really good at picking people up off the ground. If you land a Downslam or an Uppercut, you can immediately use Ice Javelin to extend the combo if they don't have an evasive. This is especially useful with environmental attacks such as pillars and benches, as they tend to ground the opponent where you can't extend with M1s, so Ice Javelin is incredibly good for picking them back up. Alternatively, you can even use the variant for Ice Javelin that most people forget even exists. This ranged variant is very useful, but it does have quite a few quirks to it. For starters, the way the game actually checks which variant to use is pretty interesting and should be kept in mind. When you use Ice Javelin, the game will check if a player is in a certain distance of your player model, and this applies to not only in front of you, but also behind and even above you. This is because there was an old exploit in the game where you could activate the ranged variant at melee distance, giving much more M1 damage. However, since a recent patch, this has been changed, and the ranged variant now also deals reduced damage. But something that's actually really interesting is that after doing 8 M1s and using each Ice Javelin variant, you'll notice that the ranged variant actually deals slightly less damage than the melee variant overall. This means that using the ranged variant is technically worse than using the melee variant. This change was made because of the previous exploit that I mentioned earlier, but to circumnavigate this you can use a front dash to add on 4 more damage to the combo and make it better than the melee variant. So using the ranged variant with a front dash is the best way to use Ice Javelin, using the ranged variant without it is the worst way. This would lead you to believe that using Ice Javelin after a move such as Frost Burst or one of the Sub-Zero variants is actually the best way to use it, right? But not really. Because of how the game checks for which variant of Ice Javelin to use, it'll often activate the melee variant when the opponent is flying away, completely wasting the move. You can try to get around this by using a side dash, but the opponent has time to recover and block the Ice Javelin. While the ranged variant does guard break, it is very hard to extend a combo off of this because of the knockback that they receive. So the most effective way to maximize the damage of Ice Javelin is to simply do 4 M1s and then activate the variant. I do also prefer to do this in the air, as I find that occasionally the ranged variant can completely miss a grounded target. You could try to use it at range in neutral, as it does freeze the opponent for a split second, but you do not get a lot of time to react to this, and your aim has to be pretty on point to actually land it. But if you're able to score a kill with Ice Javelin, it does have its own passive that is separate from the passive that you gain from getting finishes. But it is a very simple one, providing extra M1 damage for about 30 seconds. There's not a lot of advice I can give for this, as all I can say is try to enter more fights as soon as you exit one to do 6 to 7% M1 damage instead of 4 to 5. Just please stop doing 3 M1s and then the melee variant of Ice Javelin. It's so boring. Please. But now we can move on to Todoroki's third move, Frost Counter. Similar to Ice Javelin, landing this counter means it is completely unescapable and people cannot even evasive out of it. But unlike every other counter in the game, even if you land this counter, it still has a chance to completely miss the opponent. But even if you miss, you are granted a few seconds of iframes, as well as being a decent tool for taking no damage from long range attacks. I can't give a foolproof method on how to use this move because landing it completely relies on your opponent, but I can give a few methods of how people typically use counter moves. The two most common ways basically anyone lands a counter in these games is prediction and feinting. Prediction is most typically used in M1 trading, predicting when a player is going to side dash and M1 you and quickly activating the counter. And while a little bit harder, you can try and predict when an opponent is going to front dash at you for a similar effect. Predicting a move in neutral with Todoroki is a bit riskier, as if an opponent decides to use a move such as Delaware, then you're going to miss the counter completely, although you aren't going to take any damage from it. Sure, you didn't take any damage, but you did just lose an M1 reset that you could have had by predicting an M1, for example. The iframes are good for teamers, but that's about it. And the other method people use to land counters is feinting. Intentionally whiffing an attack, making your opponent think they're going to be able to easily punish you, and then quickly activating the counter to stop them. This is most commonly done with either front dashes and intentionally missing the opponent with them, or with aerial downslams. This is typically because they have a low amount of end lag, so you can act out of it pretty quickly, as well as having enough time for the opponent to react to what you're doing and get ready to punish you. But these are incredibly common tricks, and the better your opponent is, the more likely they are to be aware of them and to be more cautious of these tactics. But the best way by far is one that I can't really give concrete advice for, but is one that works super often: simply learning your opponent. This is a really good habit to start building as is, as it's going to make you a much more attentive and better player overall, but learning little things that your opponent likes to do pretty often will allow you to land counters much easier. Take notes of how quickly they are to M1 during an M1 trade, how often they use random moves in neutral, and how aggressive they are with side dashes. Being able to pick up on their habits and call out when they do it is a perfect way to land a counter, as you are learning specifically for that player. But you still need to be careful. Players are also learning at the same time as you, and when you call out one of their moves one time, it's unlikely that it's going to work a second or third time. People aren't stupid, they do know that you're playing Todoroki and that you have a very dangerous counter if you land it, so they are going to play around it and attempt to trick you in the same way. Counters are a mind game, so be attentive and try not to fall for the very obvious 3M1s, jump and then activate your own counter and get clipped like an idiot. And I wish I could talk about the passive and have something useful to say, but the passive is completely pointless, and I really hope it gets changed, because all it does is freeze the opponent for a little bit longer and look a bit flashier. An idea I had was that if you landed the counter with the passive, then it would act more like Shigaraki's, doing a grab and sending the opponent away, but with the trade-off of that you get an M1 buff similar to the Ice Javelin. It wouldn't give the buff for as long as Ice Javelin's finisher, as that would defeat the purpose of it, but I think it makes sense, as the main issue with M1 buffs is that you barely get any time to use it, but if you land a counter, you're probably already in a fight. I really wish this passive gets changed, because it just does nothing whatsoever. I've never seen any other passive that just does nothing like this one. But now we can talk about the final move in Todoroki's kit, Frostburst. Frostburst is the move that ties the entire Todoroki moveset together due to its ability to work alongside every single move. Most new players to Todoroki usually assume that Frostburst is a combo ender, but this isn't always the case. While it does seem like a good combo ender, as the knockback an opponent receives from this move is extremely large, you do have a few options to reduce or increase the knockback depending on the scenario. If you want to stick to it just being a combo ender, you can either uppercut the opponent to send them much higher, or you can use 4 M1s and send them much further. Take advantage of the huge hitbox this move has, as it will apply the exact same amount of knockback no matter where the opponent is hit, so the further away from you they are, the further they'll go. But the way cooler way to use Frostburst is the way you've seen me use it constantly throughout the video, combining it with downslams and aerial downslams. We'll talk about using it with aerial downslams first, as that's much easier. The main trick to doing this is taking advantage of the fact that Frostburst's hitbox actually extends slightly behind you. By using this, you can reduce the amount of knockback an opponent receives, and you can catch up to them with an aerial downslam. This unlocks a lot of new combo paths, those main ones being extending the combo with Ice Javelin or using a desired Sub-Zero variant aside from the downslam and the neutral variant. The downslam Sub-Zero variant doesn't work with an aerial downslam due to the stun time not being long enough. However, there is a way to land neutral Sub-Zero after Frostburst. After 3 M1s, you can turn around and face directly away from your opponent and then use Frostburst, side dashing and catching them with neutral Sub-Zero. Alternatively, instead of using neutral Sub-Zero after the side dash, then you can Downslam instead. This is how you can land the Downslam variant of Sub-Zero, as a regular Downslam will give more than enough stun time. But yes, this does mean that Frost Burst leads into every single one of your moves, so really get creative with the type of combos you want to do. You can land a front dash after using Frost Burst, so it can even be combined with environmental attacks. Just make sure you're not too close to whatever environmental attack you want to do, as Frost Burst can break the environment. And hell, there's even another way to fit 2 Downslams into a combo. To walk through the process, you'll want to Downslam the opponent and start to do another M1 chain while also walking in front of the opponent while they're grounded. You'll see your first M1, but by the time your second M1 comes out, you'll want to activate Frost Burst so the animation is cancelled. If you perform this correctly, you'll side dash and your character should do the third M1, that being a roundhouse kick. Then after that, all you need to do is Downslam. Simple. This tech can be tricky, and all it gives is an extra Downslam for damage, but if you don't really care about that, then feel free to do any of the other methods that I've just previously mentioned. So Frost Burst works into all 4 Sub-Zero variants, both Ice Javelin variants and environmental attacks, as well as having a small tech to do. This move basically has everything. However, I would not recommend using this move in neutral, as it is incredibly easy to block and has huge end lag. But Frost Burst is the key that unlocks all of Todoroki's combo potential, and I implore you to go into a server and try and think of some crazy combo and try to pull it off. I've had multiple people come up to me and ask me to teach them a Todoroki tech because they thought that the combo was flashy. You can show people that Todoroki isn't a totally boring character. And Frost Burst does have a passive, but it functions basically identical to the regular Frost Burst, but ever so slightly different. Instead of just simply hitting the opponent, the Frost Burst variant freezes the opponent and explodes the iceberg, sending them much higher up in the air. This extended ragdoll time allows you to land the second Downslam much easier, and you don't need to worry about any sort of tech. The only downside to this passive is that it removes the multi-hit from Frost Burst, but in a 1v1 this doesn't really matter. There's not a ton of advice I can give for this, as it functions basically identical to the regular version, except it's a bit more limiting, but that's about it. And with that, that's the Todoroki guide. I do hope you enjoyed this video, as I took a lot of time to try and get Todoroki right, as before making this video I actually had no idea that he was any good at all. This video was originally going to be a Bakugo video, believe it or not, but one person changed my mind on that. I approached someone in the community who I knew was very skilled at the game called Findout. I asked them for Bakugo techs, but they suggested that I have a look into Todoroki instead. This led me to discover how insanely cool Todoroki really is, and he quickly became one of my favourite characters to play. I'd honestly say that he's become a secondary main to me alongside Bakugo. So you have Findout to thank for that, and if you want to thank them personally, they have a Discord server. They own a server called Heroes High School, which they dedicate to helping players get better at Heroes Battlegrounds, so if that sounds interesting to you, please join. Just know it's not my server, I don't own it, nor do I have really any power over it. I'm just kinda there to thank the person who helped me make this video. And sorry I didn't talk about Todoroki's ultimate, but there's not a ton to talk about. The most I can really say is that you can stack 1 and 3 into 4, and that's about it. But that's really all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.